This influencer was arrested for building a fake luxury life, stealing over $100,000 worth of brand items and forging fake government documents that praised his company, which all came crashing down after he couldn't even pay for a single food delivery. How that's even possible, I have no idea, but that just goes to show how deceiving things can be online. It's safe to say this guy is one of the most prime examples of how someone's life on the internet can be completely fake. This guy is essentially nothing more than an illusion, a simple facade that doesn't match reality. So meet Chin Tung Sheng, a Singaporean influencer with more than 350,000 followers on Instagram. On Yahoo Finance, Sheng described himself as a private investor who worked with banks to fund houses/institutions that trade currency. Vague. I feel like one of the biggest telltales of a scammer is when someone describes what they do and it just doesn't quite make sense. So allegedly, he also did quite a few things. He owned an entertainment and asset management company, was the director of a Singaporean-based company called Grey Solutions, and also served as a director of a concierge company. Then in a South China Morning Post list, he was featured as one of Singapore's top influencers. And this was essentially for flaunting his luxurious and prosperous lifestyle and fancy cars that he, I guess, drove. However, while he was staging all that for the public, his entire life was complete forgery. As of now, he's confessed to one of the most elaborate strings of frauds that I've seen in a while. And I'm not even talking about the typical influencer stuff like renting private jets or photo shoots or posting old travel photos to pretend they're always traveling when actually they're sitting at home. I mean, this dude just took things to a whole new level. He forged documents claiming to have $1 billion in his bank account. He created fake letters from the Prime Minister's office, and he scammed luxury hotels and shopping malls, and even broke into a bungalow and stole over $100,000 worth of Louis Vuitton. And all of this apparently just happened in like 2 years. So his schemes were pretty bizarre and elaborate, to say the least. So this story starts off about 5 years ago during the pandemic, when the world was desperately seeking medical supplies, and Tung Sheng saw an opportunity. He managed to convince 2 different people to become partners in his business of importing and exporting these test kits. He assured that, hey, I have strong connections to the Singaporean government and apparently massive financial backing as well to prevent the problems. At some point, he even arranged to purchase millions of masks for hospitals in Singapore and all around the US. But to make this deal legitimate and I guess complete a transaction of this size involving some medical supplies, he first needed to prove his company had enough money, which required an attestation letter from a law firm. Attestation. All right, I'll Google on my phone.
Attestation.
Holy shit, I said it right. That's crazy. And this is where things start to get a little wild, because instead of, doing what any serious and trustworthy investor or entrepreneur would do by stating his actual amount of money, he created a fake document claiming to have $1 billion in his bank account. Yes, this man sent a law firm a statement showing a balance of $1.8 billion in Singaporean dollars. And in American dollars, that would be $1.3 billion. And then he also apparently showed another bank account that had $12 million in it as well. I think this was a personal one. And the absolute icing on the cake here is, in addition to these fake balances, he also submitted a fraudulent letter from the Prime Minister's office of Singapore thanking him for helping his country to provide medical support during these tough times. That's a bold move. I mean, it would honestly probably be easier claiming that you're Jeff Bezos instead of doing something like that. And indeed, he didn't get away with it, because apparently 6 people eventually filed police reports against him after conducting checks that revealed there was some pretty big differences between his actual bank accounts and what he submitted to them. And Tung Sheng was initially given a 2-year conditional warning in January 2021 for these offenses. But instead of learning his lesson, he just went on to commit even more scams. Because why not, I guess? So between August 2020 and April 2021, this guy, he found a new way to fund his fake lifestyle by scamming a Singaporean shopping mall called Ion Orchard out of nearly 77,000 Singaporean dollars, which is roughly 58,000 US dollars. And he did this in vouchers apparently. So he exploited a loyalty program where registered members could earn points by uploading photos of receipts showing their purchases at that shopping mall. So Tung Sheng, he created about 26 fake member accounts with a bunch of different email addresses and phone numbers, all traced back to him, so he could upload forgery documents of receipts claiming that he made these purchases. At least he toned it down a bit. At least he went from going, hey, I have $1 billion in my bank account, trust me, to faking some Louis Vuitton receipts. He went for the money shot first, and then he went down a few pegs. He humbled himself a little bit. He was like, all right, I went way too big to begin with. Let's chill a bit. Maybe we'll get away with it. Spoiler alert, he did not. Because naturally, the mall staff eventually noticed some suspicious activity across these different accounts, and they all checked with Louis Vuitton, and the store confirmed that none of those transactions were real. But even after getting caught there, he was still not done, because in July of 2022, he checked into the Amara Sanctuary Sentosa, a luxury hotel in Sentosa Island, Singapore, with his girlfriend. But when he was about to check in and pay for their 12-day room, he showed the receptionist a fake screenshot claiming that he's already paid about $10,000 to stay there from July 19th until the 31st of July. The receptionist took a look at the photo, and of course that was a forged image. He edited the image, and then she handed over the keys for him. However, on the second day of his stay, the hotel's finance manager noticed that no payment had actually gone through. When confronted, Tung Shen insisted that no, he actually paid, and even provided even more edited evidence that he paid. He submitted more fake bank statements that he did in fact pay. But a few more days passed and the payment still hadn't processed. The finance manager then took a closer look at his bank statements and realized it was all forged. So on July 27th, after confirming that Tung Sheng was still in his room, the finance manager called the police and he was arrested. But he wasn't even finished there either, because before being arrested, he was still at this luxury hotel that he hadn't paid for, and he faked an online transaction for a 63 Singaporean dollar Food Panda delivery, which is apparently their version of Uber Eats. So after the money was taken out of the driver's wallet, even the delivery driver filed a police report against Tung Shen for not receiving this payment. I mean, that has to be a new low. Being so committed to your fraud that you can't even spare $47 for the delivery guy who brought you your food. Meanwhile, on your Instagram, you're posting Lambos and just rocking full like Gucci tracksuits and Louis tracksuits. Come on. How pathetic can we get here? So now I'm sure you're thinking, well, it can't get too much worse than this. Well, here on my content it normally does, because in October 2023, he replied to an advertisement for renting a bungalow in Sentosa. This is the same high-end island that he was at previously when he was scheming a different hotel room. And here he finessed himself into some sort of like house viewing, because he went to view the same house several times between October and November of that year. He then apparently spotted 3 large trunks, even suitcases, and 4 boxes from the designer Louis Vuitton. So 1 month later in December, a worker hired to conduct repairs and maintenance to the bungalow noticed that some items on the display were missing: 2 trunks, 2 suitcases, and 4 small boxes. A police report was made, and the investigations revealed that Tung Sheng had entered the bungalow while it was unoccupied, either by using the passcode he memorized from the front door or by sneakily unlocking the back door during one of his tours of the house. So after he was brought in for questioning, he confessed to stealing 2 Louis Vuitton trunks valued more than $50,000 each and 6 other items, which he sold to people online and to luxury resellers. And probably the craziest thing about this story is while, he's so committed to all these crimes, he still managed to run this Instagram account with more than 350,000 followers and growing for years, portraying himself as this extremely successful and wealthy guy who only existed, I guess, in his own imagination, because none of this was real. So this guy literally destroyed his life fake flexing online. It was more important for him that random people on the internet thought that he was rich than for him to just live a happy life. Yeah, it's kind of sad. This is just another reminder that you got to take everything you see on Instagram and social media with a pinch of salt, because you have no idea where this money's from and if it's even real, or if it's some dude just trying to sell you a course. Let's be real. So after years of scamming and stealing, Tung Sheng finally had his day in court on March 7th of 2025. There, he confessed and pleaded guilty to 7 charges. These charges include scamming, forgery, burglary, and dishonest obtaining of services. Meanwhile, 9 additional others involving deception were also considered during his sentencing. His defense lawyer argued that his client committed these offenses during a time where he had suffered an extreme significant setback in his financial economic situation and career. But I mean, looking at his career, the whole thing was built on lies to begin with. What kind of setback are we talking about? Getting arrested for claiming to have $1.3 billion in your bank account? And the lawyer also said that Tung Sheng had saved a significant state and judicial resources by choosing to plead guilty instead of fighting. So I mean, congrats for not making your own situation worse for yourself, I guess. It's not like they had a lack of evidence. But I mean, hey, at least he didn't IRL live stream himself driving a car into a store just to see what would happen like this guy did, because that is an absolute insane story as well. But other than that, if you're new here, feel free to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video tomorrow. Peace.